I'm Kopotic, Quality Control Manager here at Deering Banjo Company. Today we're going to go over how to change the head on your Deering Banjo. The Upperline Deering Banjos are a little bit more involved when changing the head compared to the good time banjos. We thought we'd do a separate video, show you how to really break down the banjo, take it apart, get your head changed, and put back together properly so that when you're playing it, it sounds just like it did when it was brand new. You're going to need a few things when you change the head on your banjo. First and foremost, you're going to need a new head. For most of our Upperline models, we use a medium crown frosted top head. Other models may change in specification. Make sure you check our website and verify what you need, or feel free to contact us. We'll help walk you through what best fits the sound you're looking for. Second thing you're going to need is a new bridge and a new pack of strings. For this model, the Calico, we're going to be using a light gauge set. For other sounds and tones, you may need medium gauges, but make sure you check with us for specification and selecting the best string that fits your style. Next thing we're going to need is a Deering care cloth. This is going to help us polish up all the metal surfaces, get it shiny, looking great. Going to need a good set of wire cutters to get rid of the old strings, a 1/2-inch wrench, a small Allen wrench or tool that'll fit inside the hole of your coordinator rods, an 1/8-inch drill bit. I use that as a gauge when we're setting up our string height. Going to need a good tuner, a string winder, and a Sharpie. All these will become necessary as we break down the banjo, put it back together. Last but not least, is a 1/4-inch drum key to remove all the hooks and nuts. First step when taking apart your Deering banjo is going to be removing the resonator. That way we can gain access to all the different bits and pieces that's going to be required to change the head. To do that, we're going to remove the 4 thumb screws that hold the resonator on. For you people that have an open back model, you don't have to worry about the resonator and you can skip to the next step. Carefully remove your resonator and set it to the side. What this does is gives us a nice container to put all our hooks and nuts and bits and pieces in, so that way they're not spread about and we keep track of them. This is a very involved process and there's going to be a lot of bits and pieces coming off of the banjo, and I'm going to be referencing other videos we have on our website, like how to adjust your coordinator rod, how to tension your head, and how to change your strings. Make sure you get yourself familiar with those, and this whole process will be a lot easier as we go through it. So now we're going to start by taking the old strings off of the banjo. To do that, I remove tension on them. That way when I cut the strings don't go flying and the bridge doesn't go flying. Once I've loosened the strings, I'm going to take the old bridge off the banjo. The reason we replace the bridge when we replace the head is because the bridge can start to sag into the head over time, and what happens is that changes your string action and the bridge stops moving and making the banjo sound nice and crisp. So this old bridge, throw it away. You don't need it. We're going to put a new one on. Next step is going to be removing the old strings by cutting them off the banjo. You want to carefully unwind the strings from the tuners so that you don't scratch or harm the finish in any way. And remove them from your tailpiece. Next step is going to be undoing the tailpiece from the flange or tailpiece bracket if you have an open back model. For that, turn the banjo to the side. Carefully remove that nut and attach it to tailpiece to the banjo. And just so I don't lose track of it, I'll reattach it from where it came and stick it in my handy container. For the next step, I'm going to remove the neck from the pot assembly. The reason I do this is to get the neck out of my way. That way it's not still attached to the pot when I'm maneuvering the pot around and removing all the hooks and nuts. Some people like to leave the neck attached. I personally like to remove it so that way it's free and clear and I'm not going to damage the neck as I'm maneuvering around the pot. To do this, I'm going to flip the banjo over. I'm going to use our 1/2 inch wrench and our small Allen wrench here. I'm going to loosen the inside nuts first. And finally, this outside nut. You're going to use your small Allen wrench to loosen this first coordinator rod from the neck. Carefully place that in your resonator. Now we're going to remove the second short co-rod, and when we do this, the neck is going to come loose from the pot. So I'll support the neck a little bit down where it joins the pot and carefully remove that coordinator rod. You may need to slide the neck away from the pot a little bit to get that coordinator rod to come loose because it might hang up on the hanger bolt. Once I've removed the neck, set the neck off to a safe place so that way it's not on the same working surface where I might possibly ding it or damage it. That way when I put it back together, it's in the same condition that it was when it came off. At this point, we're ready to start taking the pot apart, removing all of our hooks and nuts, and getting down to the head so we can replace it. Before I start taking any of the hooks and nuts off, I want to mark where the flange is, so that way when I put it back together, that flange goes in exactly the same location. This will help with making sure our strings are going to line up when the neck goes back on. To do that, I'm going to use a Sharpie, and I'm going to make the mark right with the neck holes here on the flange, so that when I line it back up, that little mark, that'll be hidden when you're done with the neck on it, so you're not going to see it. Make that mark so it lines right back up with those neck holes, and it looks great. So we can move on now, start taking those hooks and nuts off. To remove the hooks and nuts, I need my 1/4 inch T-wrench. What we'll do is we'll slowly start loosening around the pot assembly until we remove all the tension from the head, and those hooks and nuts are all at finger tight. And I'll remove the rest of them just using my fingers. Once I have the hooks to where I can take the nuts off by hand, turn the pot upside down and slowly remove one hook at a time. There's 24 of them, so take your time, go slow, and it'll make the job a lot easier. Once we get to the armrest on your banjo, we want to remove the armrest and make note of which hooks they come off of. On some models, the hooks may have a slight bend to them in order for the armrest bracket to fit. So we want to make sure those two hooks that the armrest is mounted to stay with the armrest. So when we put it back together, those hooks go with the armrest and you won't have any issues getting that armrest right back where it needs to be. Once we get down to the last several hooks, be careful because the flange may start to drop off of the pot. It's okay. Just want to warn you that it may move, but because we made that nice mark, we're going to put it back exactly where it came from. Now that we've removed all the hooks and nuts, we're ready to pull the head and toss it away. Once we have the head off, we're in a unique situation where we have access to all that metal on there that normally when it's assembled, we can't quite get to with our polishing cloth. So we're going to use this Deering Care cloth, and on the inside, this white material is impregnated with a protective wax that not only cleans up the metal, but helps protect it in the long run. We're going to go through and polish off all those fingerprints and dirt and stuff that you get on there when you're playing it. So when we put it back together, not only do we have a new head, we have some nice shiny metal to go along with it. When you have this apart, gently wipe down your tone ring. Make sure you don't remove it from the pot. If it does shift a little bit from side to side, it's okay. We just need to line it back up with the neck hole so that when we put it back together, it goes back together exactly the way it came apart. Now we're ready to put the new head back on. When we do this, we need to take our time and make sure we line everything up nice and clean the way it came apart. So when it goes back together and we get it strung up, it's going to set up real good for you. First thing we're going to look at when we put the head on is the Deering logo. We're going to line the line of the R up with the neck holes. What that's going to do is center that logo right underneath the string so it looks great as you're playing. Once you have that lined up, we're ready to start putting the hooks and nuts back on the banjo. When we do this, because we're dealing with 24 of them, we only want to do a couple at a time, starting in a crossing pattern, just like you'd put lug nuts on a car, so that way the head tightens down and starts to settle in nice and evenly. We don't want the head to go down crooked because we can end up with very uneven spots in the head, and those uneven spots can cause you to get really bad tone out of your banjo. Want to make sure we take it nice and slow, bring it down slow, so that the head settles in nicely and gets a nice even tension on it. I'll start using 2 hooks at a time, first by the tailpiece, then up by the neck. When you start putting these on, take them up with your fingers just till the top edge of that nut touches the bottom of the flange, or if you have an open back with shoes on it, make sure you just bring it up till you touch the shoes. So that way you're not over tightening one side and trying to catch up when you start working on the other side. As we start to put these hooks and nuts on, you want to pay attention to that mark we made on the flange, as well as the neck hole in the tone ring. Make sure none of that's moving as you're putting it together. You don't want to get all the way done and tightened up and ready to put the neck on, and you're not able to put it on because the flange is shifted or the tone ring shifted. You want to make sure that all stays nice and correct as you're putting it together. Keep the job nice and easy for you. Next, we're going to go off to the corners, I like to call it, and put those 2 hooks on. Now we're going to skip 1 hook from the neck and put the next 2 hooks on. Now we'll go around and start adding the hooks in between all the hooks we already put on. And that way we'll get it nice and even and starting to settle in and get that tension hoop to stay nice and centered around your head. When you get to the 2 for the armrest that we pulled out and set aside with the armrest, we want to make sure that those 2 hooks go back in where your armrest is going to be mounted. Some of those hooks may have that slight bend in it that you're going to need when you put your armrest back on. Make sure that bracket that goes underneath the hooks has enough room so that when you put your armrest on, you can get it adjusted exactly where you want it. As we get to the last hook, we're going to be ready to start using our T-wrench, go around and start to tension down our nuts. The last thing we want to check before we do that is make sure our tone ring hasn't shifted and our flange hasn't shifted. We want to do this, make sure that everything's lined up, because as you start to tension it, if it's off, it's going to be off when you put your neck back on, and that's going to make your whole setup not correct. Everything looks perfectly lined up, so we're going to go ahead, use our 1/4 inch T-wrench to start tightening everything down. What we want to do is use that same pattern that we put the hooks in, start up at the neck slot with those 2 hooks, move across to the tailpiece, move over to the corners, back and forth as we bring it down about 1 turn at a time. We don't want to start over tightening one side because that's going to turn our head off kilter, and when that happens, the tone can get messed up because you're going to have dead spots. So you want to make sure as you're tightening it down, everything comes down nice and even. Now as you start tightening these hooks down, you're going to notice the hooks next to the ones you're tightening are going to loosen up. And that's going to happen until we start getting everything down to a nice even tension. Don't worry about it, take your time. Go ahead and as they loosen up, twist them up by your finger and then give it a full turn with the T-wrench. As you start tightening down your head, you may hear some what sounds like cracks or creaks or groans. That's just the mylar in the head settling in to its new position. Don't worry about it. It's when you hear a big bang, that's the head breaking. You're going to need a new head. Give us a call. We'll take care of you. But all those little tiny creaks and cracks are perfectly normal. Don't worry about them. At this point, I like to smack the head with the edge of my thumb so I can start listening to the sound of it. Make sure I'm not going to over tighten it or leave it too loose. What we're looking for is that final tension. We want a nice sharp crack out of it, like you'd get out of a snare drum. This is still really hollow and kind of dull, so I'm going to go ahead and do that same pattern, another about half turn at a time, until I get a nice sharp snap. You want to slowly work your way around your pot. Don't rush it. Don't try and over tighten it or go too fast. You just want to get that head nice and sharp so that you're not over tightening your head and wearing it out too soon. Once I've gone around it a second time, go ahead and give it a snap again. See where we're at. It's a little bit better. I'm going to go around again because I'm not quite where I want to be. Now that I've gone around once again, I'm going to check it. That's what we're looking for, that snappiness to it, a real sharp snap. We're also looking for those with a really good ear. They can hear it tuned up to a G note or a G sharp. That's about the perfect range you want your head tightened to get the best tone out of it with how you're going to play. I'm going to go around one final time, going one hook at a time all the way around, make sure they all feel nice and even so we don't have any loose hanging hooks. And because we're bouncing around, we're not going to miss any by taking it one hook at a time, just so it feels exact same on all those hooks. Now once we've gone around completely once, I like to go around a second time because we've moved things around by tightening some and not tightening others, just to make sure we get that nice even tension on every single one of those hooks. Now that I've gone around that second time, I'm going to give it another snap. Perfect, just to make sure we have that nice crisp pop. Once we have that nailed, we're going to put the neck back on, get it strung up and ready to play. To put the neck back on, we're going to go ahead and flip this pot back over. Grab our neck. Put it back in those holes. Grab our washer and the shorter coordinator rod. To get this coordinator rod back on, you may need to slide the neck away from the pot just a little bit so you have enough clearance to get that started on the hanger bolt. Once you have it started on the hanger bolt and get it finger tight, go ahead and grab that little Allen wrench or small tool to get inside there and start tightening it down. You don't want to tighten it all the way. You want to be able to have a little bit of a snugness to it so that we can make sure we get the fingerboard nice and parallel to the head. If we over tighten this, we can't move the neck and get that fingerboard so it's nice and level with the head. To check and make sure our fingerboard is level with our head, we have that coordinator rod just nice and snug. We're going to turn it over and sight down from the tailpiece side. Make sure that that fingerboard edge is nice and parallel with the head of the banjo. Looks great. So we're going to flip it up back over. Go ahead and tighten this coordinator rod down the rest of the way. You want it nice and tight so that your heel is snug up against the pot. You want that joint to be nice and snug and tight so that there's no tone loss because the neck is loose. Once we have that bottom coordinator rod tight, we're going to go ahead and insert the longer of the coordinator rods. Add our washer to the hanger bolt and get it tightened on there. And this longer coordinator rod you want just as tight as that shorter coordinator rod so that heel is nice and tight against your pot. With a loose neck, tone gets lost and notes get lost because there's not a good connection between the two parts. Those two parts need a real strong connection. Make sure that strong, beautiful tone of your banjo comes out as you play. Now we want to add the outside nut and washer. And just finger tighten these nuts for now. We're going to come back and tighten them down once we have it all strung up and get it set up properly. Now we're going to flip it over and add the tailpiece. It's a great time to wipe down your tailpiece before we get strings on it with that Deering care cloth so it looks great right on top of your brand new head. And for now, we just want to finger tighten it with the tailpiece resting on top of the tension hoop. Once we start putting strings on it and get ready to tune it, we'll do a final tailpiece adjustment. Now we're ready to dig into our brand new pack of strings and start stringing it up. When we start stringing it up, I like to start with the third string because it needs to thread through the small hole on the tailpiece, and that's going to help us just get that out of the way so we can put our bridge on and get that going too. As you slide this string through the tailpiece, make sure you do it gently so you don't scratch the head. Get that loop hooked on and start to wrap your strings. Now that we have that string hooked up, go ahead and start wrapping your strings through the tuners. For more detail on how to wrap the strings and how we wind them here at Deering, go ahead and check out the video, how to restring your banjo, and it'll walk you through it step by step. When you have that third string on there, go ahead and grab your bridge and get that placed underneath it. Remember, we're replacing our bridge with the head, so all that beautiful tone gets put back into a brand new setup, so that when you play, it sounds just as good as new. Now we're going to start adding our other strings. Now that we've added all of our strings, we're going to start tuning it up, getting the intonation set so that we can start doing our final adjustments, putting this banjo back to as good as new, ready to play. Now that we've tuned it up, we're going to go ahead and check our intonation. You want to make sure your intonation is set by using the D string open, and on your tuner you want it to be in perfect pitch. Fret at the 12th fret, and you want that D to read the exact same on your tuner. If it's reading a little sharp, your bridge is too close to the fingerboard, needs to be moved back a little bit. If it's reading a little flat, your bridge is too far away, you need to move it up a little bit. Make small adjustments a little bit at a time until you get it exactly right. You want to check it on both these strings so that the bridge has a little angle to it when you're done and it's set up just perfectly. Once you have that done, we're going to go ahead and start doing a final tension on the head. With adding the strings, that's going to change a little bit of the tension. You want to go around, just make sure everything feels nice and even with your T-wrench. We've gone around, everything feels great. We still have that nice sharp crack. Now that we have it tuned up and our intonation is set, we're going to go ahead and do the final adjustments to our tailpiece. What we're looking for is to get rid of unwanted overtones that can be created by the tailpiece not be adjusting correctly. That hollow, tinny kind of clunk, we're going to get that removed by tightening tailpiece down against the tension hoop. If you look at the tailpiece right now, you can see a small gap above the tension hoop between the tailpiece. What we're going to do is take our 1/4 inch T-wrench and start tightening that screw just until that tailpiece touches the top of that tension hoop. So now you don't see that gap. Then we're going to adjust the angle of the tailpiece by turning this screw in by finger tight. Press down on the front of the tailpiece a little bit so you can adjust it in about 1 to 2 full turns. And what that's going to do is make that tailpiece nice and solid, so we're not having those hollow, unwanted overtones interrupting the beautiful tone of our Deering banjo. Now that we've adjusted our tailpiece, we're going to go ahead and make sure our action is back where it should be. We like to set it at 1/8 of an inch above the 22nd fret to the bottom of your first string. To check that, I'm going to use my 1/8 inch drill bit, slide it underneath my string right above the 22nd fret, and make sure there's just a very small gap underneath that first string so we have the exact playability we set up from the factory. I have it set perfectly, which means the banjo went back together exactly how it came apart. Now I'm going to go ahead and snug up, tighten up those coordinator rods inside the pot. Now that I have the banjo turned over, I can do my final tightening of my coordinator rods. What we're looking for when we tighten these coordinator rods is that there's really no pressure biasing the coordinator rod one direction or the other. In order to do that, we're going to hold our small Allen wrench inside there, keep that coordinator rod nice and tight so it doesn't spin as we're tightening these nuts. And we're going to tighten the inside a little bit, then the outside a little bit, till we get them both nice and tight against the pot, because we don't want this coordinator rod influencing the direction of the neck. And we're going to do the same with this bottom coordinator rod. Just snug it up against the pot. Doesn't need to be incredibly tight. If they're too tight, that's going to restrict movement of the pot and kill some of the tone. We want to let that pot move as much as possible. Bring out all those notes you're playing, make them sound nice and clean and good for the people listening. To add the Deering armrest back to your Deering banjo, I'm going to go ahead and turn the banjo sideways. Put your armrest bracket underneath the two hooks that the armrest was removed from. And very carefully get that screw started in that armrest bracket. Go ahead and use your 1/4 inch T-wrench. Start tightening that down. You want to get it just snug against those hooks so you can still move it a little bit. When we adjust our armrest, we're looking to make it a nice solid piece of the banjo so we don't get any unwanted overtones from it. So we go ahead and squeeze it down tight against the tension hoop. That helps minimize any vibration you might get from the armrest, causing any unwanted overtones that make the banjo not sound as good as it can. Once we have it tight against the tension hoop, I'm going to go ahead and snug that bracket down so that armrest doesn't make any noise. Now that we've added the armrest, we're going to go ahead and put the resonator back on so we can start playing our banjo again. Going to gently set that banjo back down in the resonator and start adding the thumb screws. The thumb screws, when you start adding them, you want to just get a couple turns on each thumb screw down in that wall lug. Don't tighten them all as you put them in, so you have a little room to move the pot assembly around in that resonator, so that way they thread in nice and easily. If you have any trouble putting the thumb screws back in, the alignment of the pot might not be quite right. It'll be close, but it might not be just right. So go ahead and twist it around a little bit till you find that sweet spot that the thumb screw goes right down in that wall lug. Once you get them all started, go ahead and finish tightening them all the way down. As we get them all tightened down, we're going to go one last time with our tuner. Make sure we're tuned up to pitch so that when we play, this banjo sounds just as good as new. Now that you're done tuning it up, your banjo's back to as good as new, ready to enjoy all over again. Remember, take it nice and slow. Reference other videos we have on our website. It'll help guide you through each step of the process. Make sure you get it back together exactly how it came apart and sounding as good as new. If you do run into any problems, feel free to give us a call. We have technicians that'll help guide you through any problems you're having. Make sure we get that banjo ringing and sounding as good as it can. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for any further product updates and any Deering news coming to your area.